Hey,
Hey, welcome back.
do you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
I can.
Nice. Hey, Lenny.
Cheers. Cheers, everybody.
How's it going?
Good, good. It's, been going to sleep a lot earlier, so this is like almost, I don't want to say a late night, but,
It's a late night.
it's definitely the quiet time of the evening.
Nice. I this used to be my bedtime, but I've been going to sleep at like 1, 2 a.m.
Yeah, well, I wake up at like 5 now in the morning, so.
Oh shit. All right. You want to get started, or should we wait a little bit?
Whatever you want to do, we can get into it.
All right. This is Laura, aka the Sound Sommelier, talking with Greg Lamarche. Thank you for speaking with me.
Thanks for having me.
So first question I always ask, what's your earliest memory of hip hop?
Wow, well, okay. My
Mhm.
first memory of hip hop is in the early 80s. I went to sleepaway camp for a couple of years in Connecticut. And, the counselors were, not that much older than the kids. So
Nice.
I remember specifically there was a guy who worked in the cafeteria named Skip. And I remember another counselor named Spence. And they they knew hip hop, but I didn't know anything about it. I was still kind of listening to rock and stuff at that point. Uh, but I remember that there was some sort of event that they had one time at the rec hall, and someone busted out a large boombox, and I heard Sucker MC, and I believe the B side was Hard Times,
Hmm.
and uh, and I was just like, what? Just the beat. It was just so raw, and it was just like it just really like it grabbed me. And then shortly after hearing that, I heard Planet Rock, and actually saw someone break dance for the first time. And yeah, so those that would be my first like when first memories where I can be like I was like literally like in amazement. I was just like, what is going on here?
Where did you see the breakdancer for the first time? Just like out on the street?
No, no, actually in this rec hall,
Oh, at camp. Okay.
sleepaway camp. So yeah, but it was like I still have a pretty vivid memory of it, and just what people were wearing. Like back then, a lot of people used to have like cut off jean shorts and just
Hmm.
high top sneakers and uh, mesh baseball caps, just like kind of lightly pushed on their head, like it just this whole look.
Fall off. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so that those I mean, there's a lot of songs that I could probably mention, but 100% the Run DMC and Planet Rock, Africa Bambaataa were like definitely songs that I literally, it was like one of those things like in a cartoon when you drop your jaw, kind of.
Yeah, those resonated with you.
100%. 100%.
So I know you're a hip hop head. Which records are you currently listening to?
Currently listening to,
Hmm.
well, I can't lie.
Maybe not right this second, but in the
Well,
last.
uh, I guess, you know, the record that I'm listening to that I still listen to a lot is Introducing DJ Shadow.
Hmm.
Like that record to me is just timeless. But that being said, maybe to more answer your question in some way, uh, the infamous Mob Deep record still. I know that's probably maybe a generic answer. I don't know, and I'm from Queens, so I guess I'm biased maybe somewhat. But that record still it's still so powerful every time you hear it.
I agree. Can you speak a bit about your background? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, I grew up in a place called Forest Hills, Queens, which is kind of like a great place to grow up because like you're near Forest Park, you're near all these places that you can like kind of get into trouble, which we did a lot of back then. So it was a different experience than people that maybe that grew up in Manhattan and grew up in the city. That was more,
Okay.
there's buses and everything like kind of in the street. Like in Queens, you had a lot of space to move around, and it was like kind of very quiet. But like I said, a lot of areas to get into trouble.
Were you artistic in school? Is it true you were a collage artist before you became a respected graffiti writer?
Well, my mom and my father, they both were art history majors in college, and they both were kind of very artistic. So when I was growing up, my mom did a lot of collage work and did a lot of kind of local flyers and stuff for church groups and stuff of that nature. And so her little studio was right next to my bedroom. So I'd often creep in there and just kind of look in there. So collage, has always been something from that point that I've pretty much have always done it since that point. But that they both, they really influenced me early on with a lot of stuff.
Um, Outside of them, did your environment influence your art growing up, just growing up in New York?
Well, for sure. I think also it's kind of like the time that I grew up, because I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, and so I say this a lot of times when I do interviews and stuff like that, is that I when I went to kindergarten, I went to one school from pre-kindergarten to sixth grade, and that whole time, which is like from 1974 to 1980, 1981, the schoolyard was never cleaned, never buffed, the whole entire time. So my whole life growing up, I just saw graffiti. It was just something that was part of my life from some of my earliest memories. So,
Nice.
and I think a lot of people, that grew up in that time have the same memories. But it was just always there. And then so at some point, everyone kind of took up, kind of started writing their names on the wall and stuff like that. And some kept up, and some just did it for a little while.
Mhm. Who or what inspired you to first pick up a can?
I mean, again, I think it's the same thing. It's just the environment that we were living in at that time. It was just the city was, kind of broke, and there was not a lot of money coming to the city. There's a very famous newspaper headline that says, from President Ford, says, "Ford the city, drop dead. We're not giving you any money." And so when I was in grade school in the mid 70s and stuff like that, these places were just kind of bombed out. It was like even in Queens and these other neighborhoods, it was just the places were in shambles. And like I said, the place was never cleaned. But I think some of the earliest things that I remember, as far as seeing graffiti, is that on the roof of the assembly room that we had there was a patch that where the bricks were missing. So it was just kind of this black Tyvek, and it said, "We don't need ladders." And so it was one of the earliest things that made me kind of understand that people just climbed up the drain pipe to get onto the roof. And so even though I couldn't read the other graffiti, that was like the first thing that I could really read. So that's my first real memory of it.
Can you share the story behind your tag?
Yeah, it's kind of silly. I basically wrote a couple different things. When we first started writing, a lot of the older writers in the neighborhood, they had two-letter names. And whether it was unique to my neighborhood or citywide, I never really figured out. But a lot of them told us they used the fifth letter of their first name and the fifth letter of their last name. So I first wrote OR, and then my second name, I wrote Den, which is a character from Heavy Metal magazine. But then another writer that lived not too far from me had that name, so I had to kind of figure out another name. And I saw this movie that literally was in the movie theaters for like a week or two, called Honky Tonk Freeway, that no one's ever heard of. But in this movie, long story short, there was a character named Spanky, and he was just this crazy guy, and he was like traveling cross country. And so I said, okay, I'll write Spanky, but it was a long name, and it only really lasted for like a few months. So then I was like, oh, let me shorten it. So I shortened it to Spy. But every neighborhood had a writer that wrote Spy.
Mm-hmm.
So as I said, a lot of people wrote two-letter names then, so I just shortened it to SP, and it's just always been that since then.
Nice. What or who were some of your early influences or influencers? Like, did you pay a lot of attention of other tags that you saw, or was it just kind of developing your own style?
No, I mean, I think for a while, I mean, early on, it was just, neighborhood graffiti. There was a lot, like I said, there was a lot of places in Queens. There was not only, there's train yards there, there were underground layups there were highways, there were garbage truck yards, there were truck yards, there were freight trains. There were so many places, the handball courts. There were so many places to get into that a lot of the writers, and it's obviously I could name a ton of writers, but there's a bunch of writers from my neighborhood. I think they were my earliest influences. A guy who wrote Stowe, a guy who wrote Dime 139, Dam 1, Stun 1, SF7, KU2. But these were all like kind of neighborhood writers for the most part. But they were definitely my earliest influences as far as graffiti.
Nice. Do you have any memorable spots that you used to like to hit back in the day?
Well, like I was saying earlier, like one of the spots growing up, we're hitting highways. Living in Queens, you had access to a lot of highways. And so, especially during the summertime, it would be fun to kind of go on a mission and paint highways because you'd be kind of walking through the woods. You'd be going into these, all these crazy underpasses and stuff like that. And that, you were able to really kind of maneuver around without being seen. And so that was kind of always a fun thing doing the highways.
Nice. Were you more of a fan of bombing solo or more of a collaborative effort back in the day?
Back in the day, I guess we were more as a crew thing, but I've done both. I mean, it's equally as pleasing to go, with a crew or to go, for dolo. But yeah, back in the day, it was definitely more of a crew thing.
Understood. How did you transition from being a graffiti artist into a career as a fine artist, graphic designer?
Well, one of the things that I was doing also kind of simultaneously, I was writing graffiti very early on, is I started making collages also in the very early 80s. And so those two things kind of ran parallel for a long time until the early 90s, till I did this magazine Skills, which kind of combined all of my interests, which were graffiti, photography, collage, layout design and stuff like that. And so that really kind of helped me realize a lot of things, in the sense of just like, these are all the things that I was interested in, and that, maybe I could do, something beyond what I was doing, just, painting and bombing and stuff like that. But I'm sorry, what was the first part of that?
No, it's fine. You were going in the right direction. I was just asking like how you kind of transitioned that into a career as a graphic designer, fine artist.
Well, that's the thing, is that I guess after I did the magazine, I started to work in the art kind of industry. I worked at an art shipper. I worked at a gallery for a while to kind of get like a background sense of what was going on in the art world, because in a lot of ways, it's not the most pleasant place to exist in. And so I think a lot of the experience that I gained working for an art shipper, working at a gallery for many years, kind of gave me, I don't want to say like a thicker skin or something like that, to kind of understand like, hey, if you can't handle rejection, say, or something like that, this may not be the thing for you. So by the time that I thought about seriously doing something like that, I felt confident in what I was doing moving forward, because, I'd kind of seen what the kind of bullshit looked like.
What are some of your favorite mediums to work with?
Well, I primarily work in collage, but I love to draw. I draw every day, and I paint. So I would say collage, drawing, and painting are probably the three main mediums that I work in. But that said, collage is probably the primary thing that I do, and is a jumping off point for a lot of other projects that I do, whether it's paintings or kind of installation stuff, or even larger murals. A lot of the ideas come from making collages first.
Right. That makes sense. How do you choose which colorways to incorporate in any given piece?
I mean, I guess there's two things that I'm kind of into with as far as color. Like, part of me really likes the economy of color, sometimes using maybe two colors, but I think ultimately I'm really very comfortable using like 4 or 5 colors ultimately.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I'll use whatever ton of colors, it's all good. But I think I like to use 4 or 5 colors. And then I guess as far as what influences that, I'm still to this day kind of stuck on 70s spray paint colors and 70s kind of design marker colors and stuff like that. I mean, I dig all the new colors and stuff like that, but I still find myself always gravitating towards aqua and dusty pink and flat black, and just the, just those kind of topaz yellow or adobe or avocado green or grape purple. Like, I still always find myself kind of really going back to the 70s colors.
No, I love those. And I think they pop more. So,
Yeah.
are there consistent elements that can be found throughout your body of work? Like, if someone looked at a piece without seeing your tag, could they be like, oh, that looks like an SP or a Greg Lamarche?
I would say the answer is probably yes and no. In some ways, people who, sometimes I forget that people have maybe followed my work for a while, so that they know the different things that I do, because I guess in a lot of ways I do, I'm known for, graffiti writing and writing my name, and also for, some sort of graphic design and painting and a bunch of different things and collage work, but they are all kind of connected. So in that sense, to me, yeah, there are elements of everything kind of informs each other. But that being said, I do a lot of times do different type of work. And so I think, sometimes people can tell that everything, they can tell, oh, I did that. But at the same time, I'm sure there's sometimes I do pieces that people maybe not right off the bat would recognize that I did.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think your lettering especially is very unique to you. What message do you aim to convey when starting a piece, whether it's graffiti or just a fine art piece?
Well, I think the energy, I mean, obviously it's been, everything kind of builds, for me, builds on the next thing. And so it's like, obviously graffiti plays a huge role in like a lot of the work that I do, but it's obviously also evolved into many different other areas. So for me, I like both. How do I say? Both sides. I'm sorry. Say again.
What message do you aim to convey when starting a piece? It could be different every time, but do you ever set out to be like, okay, I'm going to do this piece and I hope the viewers or onlookers to get this vibe from it?
Yeah, well, again, I guess that's what I was really trying to say. It's just like the energy you get from graffiti and stuff that's like surrounding it and stuff like that. That's really what I'm trying to convey in a lot of things. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I can answer that question a bunch of different ways, but I'll just leave it at that, I guess.
Fun. Can you speak on collaborations you've done with brands like Zoo York and Bloomingdale's and Shake Shack?
Sure. I mean, hey, work, being able to parlay a career out of doing this kind of stuff is kind of amazing. And to be able to be fortunate enough to work with a bunch of different people. I mean, every project is different. I mean, there's a lot of things that are the same. They want maybe you to do a certain thing, but it's really, like I said, it's really been a blessing to work with a lot of these things, because you get to do all different projects, and they're on a bunch of different, different scale, and you get a lot. I think when you mention some of these projects, I think of some of the people that I still know today, because I know them through those projects, and they're still friends of mine today. So it's a special, it's more than just kind of doing work, and I feel lucky to be able to do that.
Do you have any others in the works right now or coming up?
Well, I think like a lot of other people, unfortunately, I had a lot of other projects that were coming up in March and April and stuff like that have been kind of put on hold. Hopefully some of them will still come to fruition. But that being said, there are some things in the works that are still seemingly still happening. But basically, I've just been home working, making new work, and kind of working on projects and doing writing, and just trying to, be as productive as possible. But that being said, yeah, there's some things happening, like nothing I could really be specific about.
Understood.
But yeah, hopefully some of these projects that were kind of put on hold because of the present situation will, hopefully manifest themselves next year.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel the art of graffiti is viewed now versus 10 years ago, 20 years ago?
Well, obviously it's evolved. and it's changed a bit since then. I mean, but then it's also, it also changes as one ages. 10 years ago, I was probably still more involved with writing, illegally and stuff like that. So, but that being said, it's more of a business. It's more of, I think, a formidable artwork, to reckon with and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of things that are happening right now around graffiti that, I think, now that we have the internet and all this other stuff that's going on, people have a lot of access to information around graffiti and know a lot more than they did maybe 10 years ago.
Right.
So I think that's helpful because, it's a legitimate, art form, American art form and stuff like that people should know about.
What's your largest piece to date? The one on the side of the building, the collage piece in Brooklyn comes to mind, but do you have any others that?
Well, that's probably definitely one of the largest pieces, and that was a piece that was done in collaboration with Colossal Media. That was actually a collage that I made, that they painted on that wall that ran for a couple of years. But as far as the largest piece, I mean, there's a couple I could think of, but the one for whatever reason comes to mind is I did a piece that was maybe only 8 feet tall, but it was about 200 feet around.
Okay.
And they kind of wrapped. It was a commission project where they wrapped Foley Square downtown with these wood panels, and that was pretty big.
What are your thoughts on the legal decision totaling more than $6 million made in favor of street artists whose work at 5 Points was destroyed?
Well, I know a couple of the guys I think are hopefully going to get some money from that. I mean, ultimately, I think it's good because, it shows that people understand that there is some value to what we do and stuff like that, and not just that every developer and landowner can just kind of like step over that, which is kind of what happened in that situation. So yeah, hopefully they get, I know there's lawyers' fees and all kinds of other fees and stuff involved. So we'll see. Hopefully, hopefully people do get some money from that because a lot of these people, invested a lot of time into that place.
Yeah. I remember when I lived in Elmhurst, I used to take the 7 train, and this was before your piece got covered. I used to see it in that top corner.
Yeah, I think we were one of the first people to actually do the kind of rollover, hangover piece, roller pieces over the top of the wall there. And yeah, I mean, it's, I think that's what made it such a, that's made it a special place, is that you could see it from the 7 train, you could see it from the Amtrak, you could see it from a bunch of different places. It was like, it was a good spot. And it was a good spot even before it became the Fun Factory. It had been bombed, and there was some very, very memorable classic pieces that were done on that before it was, kind of turned into a legal place as well.
Right. So you touched on it a little bit, but how would you say the pandemic's affected your creative process or work?
Well, yeah, it's definitely seeped into the work. But as I'm sure a lot of other artists and creative types, writers, musicians, perhaps, it's like it's not that difficult to kind of go into isolation and work and make things. So yeah, I mean, basically, I'm just trying to be as productive as possible, and I've been lucky enough to have access to not all of my supplies, but to enough that I can do a bunch of different things. But yeah, but as far as what's going on, yeah, it definitely does get into the work, and you find yourself, kind of addressing these issues in your head, and that comes out in the work.
Right. Are you able to concentrate and maximize your time, or are you kind of just like, oh, I have all this time, and then you're like, oh, I should have been working?
Well, there is a funny sense of like, and I guess maybe it's trying to be hopeful about the situation, is that like, yeah, you don't want the situation to all of a sudden be like, hey, everything's all good, we can go back to normal, and then be like, hey, what did I do during this time? So yeah, so I'm definitely trying to maximize the time that we have now, but as truth told, it's like I have been able to accomplish a good amount of things on a daily basis, but it still seems that I can't accomplish quite as much as I want to accomplish because maybe I have too lofty a goals. Because I do understand this is kind of like a pause. I mean, the crazy thing about this is that, you know, I collect a lot of stuff, even though I don't collect as much as more, but I have a lot of photographs from documenting, and I have a lot of things I collect because of my collage work. And, you know, you would ask me like 10 years ago, I would have said, hey, you know, I wish the world could just stop for like 2 weeks so I could sort out all my shit and then kind of hit play again, and I'd be kind of in a more clear place. And then this thing kind of happens, and you know, obviously, I don't wish this at all, but at the same time, yeah, I'm really trying to utilize it as much as possible, as I'm sure a lot of other people are as well.
Yeah, everyone keeps saying to me and others I've heard is like, don't think that you have to accomplish a million things right now.
No, I mean, I'm trying not to beat myself up about it, but it's like, and maybe it sounds cliche, but I did see something, I can't remember where, so I'm sorry I can't credit it to, but I saw something online that was saying something about, you know, don't count the days, make the days count. And like that, you know, I'm trying to do just that.
No, that's great advice. Do you have an opinion on the role art will play in whatever the new normal is that the world will be after this?
Well, I mean, I think art and music and everything will still be just as important, but it's really, I guess, just how we're going to view it now is really more the question, because obviously museum openings and gallery openings and public art openings and stuff like that are all very much centered around, you know, get-togethers. So I think it's really more just kind of like how we're going to feel out the, you know, the next year or two or however long this kind of takes to kind of get sorted out. But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, obviously, I mean, maybe it's already silly, but it's like, yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are creating work now, or I would, you know, and so, you know, as they, you know, as they're trying to say like, hey, you know, maybe when the economy comes back, it's going to really come back booming. You know, I guess let's hope so in one sense. But I also think that on the same side, when things do come back, yeah, the art is going to come back booming. I mean, there's a lot of shit out there too, because like obviously on Instagram and some of these other things, they're like, I don't know what exactly they're doing all the time, but they're definitely filtering in some sort of crappy art stuff. I don't know, because they know you like art or whatever. So it is what it is. But yeah, I think people are, you know, that are, you know, that do this for real, or, you know, take it to heart and are, you know, and making work and responding to this.
Yeah, anything to get attention. Do you have thoughts on virtual exhibitions, like how that might be a way to reach a broader audience versus exhibits? And
well, I mean, I guess, yeah, I mean, I guess everyone's kind of trying to figure out how the best way to do that is, you know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Instagram kind of is a virtual exhibition in some way. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess making that interesting. I mean, obviously during this time, I've looked at a bunch of things and looked at a bunch of museums and galleries things. And the things that I found most interesting recently were kind of old black and white videos of artists in their studios and things of that nature. So, you know, it's really just being able to, you know, obviously we live in such a content-based world. And now we have like this crazy captive audience with everyone at home and stuff like that. It's really upon everyone to make sort of interesting content, which is definitely out there. So, you know, moving forward, hope to do some of that.
no, I agree. Well, thanks so much for talking to me. Do you have anything else to add or promote?
Yeah, well,
Do you
yeah.
want to talk about that piece?
Yes,
The
yes,
breakable
we
piece?
did the print with the House of Rue, which is this print that I made that's kind of dedicated to the healthcare workers that are, you know, out there kind of fighting this virus on the front lines. And so, yeah, I made a print that's basically a timed release print that's going to be available all week until Sunday midnight, the next Sunday, May 24th. And all the proceeds are going to go to the NYC Health and Hospitals.org to help all the, you know, again, all the hospital workers and first responders and their families and stuff like that who need you know, a lot of extra help kind of during these times. So yeah, I mean, I have some show ideas and some other book ideas to promote, but that's really all I want to promote it, you know, right now.
All right. Well, thank you again, and have a good night.
Well, you too. It's always good talking to you.
And you tell your lady I say hi.
Yeah, tell G and J I say hello.
Oh, well, they're both sleeping. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, good night. Thank you.
Have a good one. Thank you.